All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. If you have been locked in on the channel, you know that I'm bringing you as many guest interviews from bloggers, broadcasters, and writers across the industry as I possibly can, following their particular teams. I am generally recording those and then releasing those as I am able to. We have set aside this time, though, for an 8 o'clock live stream here with Cam Underwood from State of the U to track Miami's day on the recruiting trail and the signees, which I don't want to liken to the recent the recent tracking of the stock market, but it's not been a good sight for Miami fans in regards to what the recruiting ranking has looked like throughout the day.
Yeah. Hey, hi guys, welcome. No, it is excuse me, not been good. Because Miami went 0 for the day on players who were not committed to Miami. So every prospect that we were chasing or trying to flip or engaged in recruiting who was not already committed to Miami chose to go elsewhere. So as they joined other teams and other classes and things, rose, or their rankings rose, Miami's actually plummeted by not adding those, or not plummeted, but it lowered or fell by not adding any of those guys. So currently on 24/7 Sports, Miami has a national rank of 37 and ACC rank of 7 in recruiting this year, which is pretty bad. I'm going to keep it pretty, quite honest with you guys. So yeah, let's first go through those players who have signed, and there are 12 of them. Jeremiah Payton, 4-star wide receiver, Neptune Beach, Duncan U. Fletcher. He's going to come in. He's going to play right away. He's a top 70 guy nationally, like overall. Like, he's very good. Was a legend in the Jacksonville area growing up, winning awards and things as a optimist level player in middle school, coming into high school, even at scholarship offers before he even played a down of high school football. That's how good this kid is. So he's going to play. He's going to play right away. Keontre Smith, 5'11", 205 from Chaminade down here in South Florida. He is built similarly to Jaquan Johnson with a little bit more muscle to him, because Jaquan Johnson was like 190, getting up to maybe 200 pounds at the end of his career. Keontre Smith comes in at 205. I'm not saying that Keontre Smith is Jaquan Johnson as a player. I'm comparing their physical builds. However, Keontre Smith is a 4-star kid, and he's very good. He's going to play right away. Probably not on base defense, because Miami does have Amari Carter and Gervin Hall in front of him. But he can rotate in there, but he's going to be a player here for sure. Jafari Harvey from Vero Beach, 4-star defensive end, 6'4", 225. It's the third year in a row that Miami has gotten a very underrated guy at defensive end from the local area. 2 years ago, it was John Garvin, who was a starter this year and high up on the team in tackles for loss. I don't have that tab open on my computer to show you exactly or tell you exactly the number, but a lot. So John Garvin, Gregory Russo, he was the one who precipitated the offensive line change in the spring because he had 9 sacks in 2 scrimmages. So he was the second guy last year, and then now it's Jafari Harvey, 6'4", 225. He's a beast. He's going to play a lot. That's another name that you're going to need to know. Avery Huff also signed, linebacker from St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale. As has been reported, several, I should say, college recruiters said that Avery Huff was the best linebacker in the state of Florida this cycle, and that's high praise. So, yeah, he's going to come in and he can be a rotation guy, and he might even have to step into a bigger role if the linebackers on Miami's current roster decide to go to the NFL, but we'll talk about that another time. Corey Couch is an undersized corner, also from Chaminade. If you remember that name, that's Keontre Smith's teammate from the secondary. He's undersized at 5'9.5". They list him at 148 pounds, and I've seen him in person in games and camps. Like, Corey Couch is very thin. He's very lively built. He's like 150 pounds. He's tiny. But what he can do is lock you down. A great cover guy. He can play that role. It will be interesting to see moving forward with Trajan Bandy, who's 5'9", and to Corey Couch, who's 5'9", to see how much they can play together, just because that dearth of size will automatically give the offense an advantage, because most offenses are not running out, guys that small at wide receiver. They like to have a little bit more height. So it'll be interesting to see that. Jason Blissett from Brooklyn, New York, wants to be a federal agent when he grows up. and he's coming to Miami. He went to a private school for high school. He's coming to a private school for university. He's about 6'4", 270. He's your athletic kind of 3 technique, maybe a 5 technique defensive lineman. So your defensive tackle who moves and penetrates a lot. That's the Gerald Willis role. Before him, that was the RJ McIntosh role a couple of years ago. So he's going to come in and play that. Obviously, he's going to need to get a little bit bigger and stronger to play at the college level, but another 4-star. But that's the last 4-star that we have. Larry Hodges, 6'1" tight end. He's more of an H-back. You're going to have to move him around and try to utilize his athleticism to be the advantage for him just because he's only 6'1". But from Tampa Jesuit, and he can play. Like, he's athletic. He'll jump over you. He has good hands. He runs good routes. But, his versatility is a big factor. So you're going to have to lean on that versatility, kind of like, what NC State did with Jalen Samuels. I'm not saying you're going to run Larry Hodges as a single back like NC State did with Samuels, but that kind of versatility. He's outside one play, fullback one play, wing tight end, slot, just move him around a lot. That's going to be where he's going to be valuable. Samuel Brooks from Miami Northwestern. He's like 6'1", 6'1 and a half, 195-pound outside linebacker. He was a sack artist in high school because he's quicker than everybody else that was trying to block him and everything. But he's probably going to play actual linebacker in college. But he's a kid who tore his knee up at the end of his junior year pretty bad, tore ACL, MCL. But he's in this class, and he's a talented player. So he's one of your local guys who's like, underranked or, 3-star from South Florida who would be 4 or 5 stars from other places. That fits for Sam Brooks. Jalar Holly is 6'2", 280 defensive tackle from Beaufort, Georgia. That is the high school at which Jess Simpson, the defensive line coach, once had a legendary high school coaching turn. He did not coach Holly. Well, maybe Holly's freshman year, I want to say. Simpson coached Holly, or Holly was in the program because he didn't play varsity as a freshman. But he's coming down here, so obviously that relationship between where Jess Simpson once worked and where he currently works paid off for Miami. Jason Munoz from St. Thomas Aquinas. He's battled injuries in his career, but he's 6'3" and a half, 275, 280 pounds. He's going to play D-tackle here and grow into his body a little bit more. There was a picture from a visit that he took over the summer of Jason next to his father, and his dad's a big dude. So he has that frame to really blow up, muscularly. So that could be another lower ranked guy because he missed his junior year with a broken leg. So another kind of diamond in the rough, if you will. Ja'Kai Clark from Loganville Grayson in Georgia. He's the offensive center of the future. That's what he does, and he does it really well. He's a 3-star guy, but he's not going to really play right away, and that's fine. And then the biggest project of the class is Zion Nelson from Sumter, South Carolina. He was a 2-star recruit when he was committed to Appalachian State. He took a secret visit to Miami and then flipped, and all of a sudden, he signed with Miami. But he's 6'5", 240 pounds. He's a former basketball player, so he's very athletic. He can move around. He's very mobile and things like that. And he's actually more physical at the point of attack than you would think for a guy who was a basketball player and 6'5", 240. The thing about it is he just needs to get bigger and stronger. I mean, this is a 2 or 3 year down the line kind of take. I saw it on social media that said, okay, Zion Nelson has a size 17 foot, so he could, support his frame and he could grow into it and everything. But he looks like a wing player in basketball. He's built like Anthony Lawrence for those who are fans of the Miami basketball team. So, he really needs to add size and strength. And that's just plain and simple. So, it's going to probably take a couple years for that. So, Danny Isadora previously, who went to Cypress Bay and he played guard at Miami. He was another kid who had to reshape his body and add strength. He didn't really contribute at Miami until his 3rd year, his redshirt sophomore season. So that timeline, or even into a 4th year, that's what we're looking at for Zion Nelson if he ever plays here. But those are the 12 guys who have signed. The 2 who did not are JUCO punter Lewis Headley. He's the Australian dude who's 6'4", 245 and has tats like everywhere that there's visible skin, including like his neck and everything. He has a great, obviously, accent being Australian and just a aura and everything. But Miami doesn't have room for him to sign until February, so he's going to wait and then sign in February. So that's all fine. The surprise of the day was Cameron Williams from Chaminade. You know that name because that's Keontre Smith and Corey Couch's teammate. He's not signing. And he's going to take more visits in January. And I saw rumors, and I'm not sure about the veracity or the truthfulness of those, that Cameron Williams might not have the grades to get into Miami. And that's kind of interesting because he goes to a prep school, a very highly thought of academic institution down here in South Florida. Chaminade Madonna is like not an easy, like a charter school that just kind of opens in a storefront and like kids go wherever else. Like, no, Chaminade is known for academics. Like they have kids who go to high level, institutions of higher learning all the time. So it'll be interesting to see if that is proven true or what happens with Cameron Williams. But yeah, he was going to sign and all of his teammates signed and he didn't. So there's that. So those are the 12 who signed and the 2 who didn't. And yeah, I guess we can talk about the misses or where we go. I don't know what, Mark's going to ask me, but I'll have an answer.
Yes, you will. So I think the 3 alarming aspects or components of the news of the day for me would be, number 1, what the ranking is. Number 2 would be the misses that you alluded to but didn't run through because you ran through the signees.
Right.
And then number 3 would be the Jaron Williams news of his defection and transfer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we want to pick these off one by one, the first would be the ranking. I think fans get caught up too much in the ranking being some kind of direct correlation of what's going to happen on the field. It's not. The 7th class in the nation might turn out to be better than the 3rd class and the 12th better than the 7th, but it's a strong indication. And obviously you don't want to be at 43 or whatever the number is right now.
Right.
You want to be at 15 or 20 to say, hey, we've got a competitive class to where we should be competing for championships in the conference. I mean, so we'll start there.
Yeah, we're 37th nationally according to 247. I think we're 43rd nationally in rivals, and 7th or 8th, depending on which service in the ACC. That's simply not good enough. That's not good enough for the University of Miami. When you have the Vanderbilt SB Nation blog throwing shots about, being 1 spot behind or ahead of Miami and things like that, like I chose between Miami and Vanderbilt for academics. We're talking about football, bro. Like this is a very different kind of interaction. So no, it's very problematic. 12 only because 12 guys have signed. There's 2 guys who have not signed. Who knows the status of Cam Williams? And I mean, if you're looking, where does I'm sorry, I'm supposed to move my phone, but I don't know where the assistance is supposed to come from because I'm sorry. I did not expect to see what I just saw. I will have to deal with that message imminently, but I will get to it later.
Is that something that pertains to what our discussion is?
That is something that is a private conversation that I am not at liberty to disclose, but I will have to deal with that at another time. Yeah, the recruiting ranking, getting back to the lecture at hand, it's not good enough because the collection of talent in this class for Miami is simply not good enough. There are players to like. And I'm not going to say that everybody's trash because that's inaccurate. And I know that some people on social media are coming at me today saying, that I'm being very negative and things like that. I try to be pragmatic. You don't have a quarterback at all in this class and not really hope for one, except for Thomas Brown, the offensive coordinator at media day after practice where they were able to talk about recruiting with all the coaches. He said Miami's going to get a quarterback this year. It has to be a grad transfer or something. And now that becomes integral with the report that Jaron Williams wants to transfer. And when directly asked about it, because Jaron Williams was there, the quarterback coach, John Rick, cut off the reporter, Susan Miller-Degnan from the Miami Herald. I'll put it out there because it was already put out there. She asked the question to Jaron about, there's a report out there that you intend to transfer. Is this and John Rick cut her off, said, nope, we're good. Get out of here, move, whatever. Mark Richt was then asked directly at his press conference, and then he thoughtfully said, and I quote, "I'm not ready to make a statement about that right now." And anytime that something like that has happened in Mark Richt's tenure, that thing that has been asked about that is not answered at that time has come true. So like, asked earlier, hey, there's a rumor that N'Kosi Perry is suspended for LSU game. I'm not ready to talk about that. The day of the LSU game or 2 days before, N'Kosi Perry is suspended. Whatever it happens to be, that thing comes true. I heard there's a rumor that Amon Richards has a career-ending injury. He's not going to play. I'm not ready to say anything about that, but we'll address that when time comes true. Amon Richards out for his career. Like that happens. So I say that to say there's multiple points of evidence that in the same interaction, this should be proven, or probably will be proven true, because in any other similar interaction, that thing was proven true. Now, that means Jaron Williams will be leaving, 4-star All-American from last year. That means your quarterback room now goes down to 2. Mark and I spoke about this. I wrote about this last year, that if anybody were to leave and not bringing in a quarterback and recruiting, now you have 2 scholarship quarterbacks. And Kelsey Perry's already been suspended for a game. Actually, he's already been suspended. Cade Weldon, the other one, was suspended for 4 games. So the injury could befall one of them at any time. So you need another quarterback. I've been screaming this for years. Your number 1 recruiting rule is you had to have a quarterback in every class for this very reason. Thomas Brown saying that Miami's going to get a quarterback is based on blind hope to me right now. I don't see where it's going to come from. At running back, you got Asa Martin, who's a transfer from Auburn, who's disgruntled because they played him in 5 games, and the redshirt rule says you can play in 4. So they called his number in the Auburn game, the Alabama game, the last game of the year. He said, "Coach, I played in 4 games. If I cross the sideline during game action with my helmet on, that means my red shirt's gone." I said, "Martin, get in there." He had 13 carries this year. He was Mr. Alabama football the previous season when he was a recruit and everything. So he left from there. He's coming in, but he has to sit out in 2019, and he plays in 2020. Now, for the 2020 season, Miami has 3 of the top 10 running backs from last year, 2018's recruiting class. Lorenzo Lingard, Cam Davis, and now Asa Martin. That's good. But you have 0 high school running backs in this class. And, you have all the other guys on the roster. But if you're saving scholarships at running back for next year's guys, where there is a plethora of elite running backs nationally, what are you doing? Why? Asa Martin probably didn't have many other options, but he's coming in. Wide receiver, Amon Richards, career-ending injury. Jeff Thomas left the program. Now, all of a sudden, you go from needing 1 to probably needing 2 or 3 in this class. You make a late run at John Dunmore, one of the teammates of Cam Williams, Keontre Smith, and Corey Couch's Chaminade. That's a guy who I said Miami should have been after the whole entire time. Is he a superstar? No. Is he a high school All-American and probably a solid receiver in college? Yes. Miami can use that. Try to flip him. He signs with Penn State today. That's off. Jaden Hazelwood, everybody's number 1 All-American, number 1 wide receiver in America. There's reports now that he pimped Miami for the spot that he really wants to go to, which is looking like Oklahoma. So Miami thinks he's coming. Everybody thought he was coming, and it's probably that he played us to hide that he was going to Oklahoma. So now you have Jeremiah Payton as the only receiver in this class. Jeremiah Payton's really good. Jeremiah Payton's going to play from day 1 at Miami. Jeremiah Payton is only 1 man, though, and you need bodies at wide receiver. Tight end, you only have 1, Hodges, because you miss on Keon Zipperer from Lakeland. That's another miss. You miss on his teammate, Lloyd Summerall, who's a defensive end. It's just, if you run down the positions, there is not enough talent. The needs for this class were not met anywhere. And that's reflected in the ranking. You're talking about, and I'm going to click on it over here on 247, national ranking 37. I click on that and I scroll down when the window pops up because it, needs to scroll down and populate. Miami at 37 is fell to 38 as I clicked on that. These are the teams ahead of Miami directly. 33 is Missouri, 34 is Minnesota, 35 is Virginia, 36 is Baylor, 37 is North Carolina. Those are the teams around which Miami's recruiting ranking lies right now. There is no reason that should be the case. Minnesota has a better recruiting class currently signed than the University of Miami. What are we talking about? The recruiting ranking is not 100% emblematic of what's going to happen, but it is emblematic of the fact that there is not Miami caliber talent or enough Miami caliber talent coming onto the team, and with many needs and holes that I've been writing about for a long time, and not just a quarterback, but across the team, offensive line. You have 1 high school kid who's 3 years away from contributing, and you get Tommy Kennedy from Butler, the grad transfer. Now, Butler's going to come in. He's going to be the left tackle next year because he's the only guy that we have. But you need 4 to 5, maybe even 6 bodies to offensive line. You got Ja'Kai Clark also, the center. But he's not going to play next year. He's a 2 to 3 year guy. Excuse me. So you only have Tommy Kennedy, who has only 1 year left to play, to come in. That's not good enough. Like it's not good enough. And that's what that ranking shows. So if we want to be the Minnesotas of the world, where 7-5 is the requisite, and then 8-4 is a good season, maybe we beat a rival every once, every what? It was the Axe against Wisconsin. I'm pointing at the helmet that's behind you. Once in 15 years, where I watch my rival and they have the trophy for 15 years, and we finally beat them once in a blue moon. And we run across and we get the axe or the trophy or the war canoe or whatever it is once every 15 years. I'm not going once every 15 years, and that's how often we're beating Florida State. I'm not going once every 15 years, and that's how often we beat Virginia Tech. I'm not going once every 15 years, and that's how often we beat Florida. Well, I probably will, because Florida doesn't want to play us, so they only play us once every 15 years. But you get my point. We should not be in that caliber, and that's what's happening right now, and that's not good enough.
Cam Underwood, State of the U. So I got to think that there's a healthy amount of information, insight, metrics for people to chew on over at State of the U.
Oh, man. I mean, I have been home all day. Took the day off to quarterback the recruiting coverage. So, yeah, I wrote a bunch of stuff. I had notebooks for most of the players. I didn't get all of them finished because I was in a car accident yesterday in a pile up on the freeway. I'm fine. Yeah, so I tweeted that out yesterday. I might not do stuff, but I mean, I feel good enough. And, I love doing this stuff, so I did it. I do have to finish some things, but I mean, I wrote about the misses. I wrote about, the hits. I have a running tally of the day, like at what time, things actually happened and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's plenty to talk about, but, especially the misses, man. I mean, it was 0 for the day, Yeah, it was just 0 for the day. Like anybody that we were after or trying to flip or anything, like, John Dunmore, he signs with Penn State, and that's a kid that we were trying to flip. The Lakeland duo of, Lloyd Summerall and Keon Zipperer, they actually made it a trio because they had a teammate, Dayavi Hammond, who's an offensive lineman. All three of them announced to Florida on ESPN. So, okay, Miami whiffs on that. You have Evan Neal, 5-star offensive lineman from IMG Academy. You've been chasing him for the longest time to come in and be your left tackle of the future. He said, thanks, but no thanks, against the push of his family, because his family are Miami Hurricanes fans. So they wanted him to come to Miami. He said, nah, I'm going to make a business decision and go to Alabama instead. And you can't really fault that guy for that. Just everything that was possible or on the board as potentially possible went the opposite way for Miami. And, even when you add in things like, hey, Cam Williams, he's going to sign at the same ceremony as all of his teammates, including Dunmore, who signed, even though he signed elsewhere. And there were other kids from Chaminade who signed because Chaminade, 3A state champions, a loaded roster, things like that. He says, nope, not going to sign, going to take other visits, which does not bode well. You have the report of Jaron Williams potentially transferring away, and then the cryptic answers, from the coaches to try to insulate the player. And I understand that they should be looking out for the player and things like that. But again, any instance that has been, reported and alleged as such ends up being true. And, with Mark Richt as the coach. So, yeah, I mean, it just wasn't good. I mean, and then, the rumors or reports or scuttlebutt about Jaden Hazelwood probably going elsewhere. And you're banking on him, coming in, and things like that. Tyreek Stevenson, another superstar from down here, Miami Southridge, he was supposed to sign today and then announce at the All-American game on January 5th. He went to his signing day ceremony and said, I'm not going to sign today. I'm going to sign on Friday, which is the last day of the signing period. But I'm undecided. It's still between Georgia and Miami, but I don't know. And if he didn't sign today, coming off an official visit to Miami last weekend, that seems to be portending that he's going to go to Athens, like so many other guys, especially from down here that Miami's been chasing recently. So, I mean, it was whiff-a-palooza, like whiff after whiff after whiff. And I mean, sure, people wanted to fight with me and saying, oh, Dunmore's not a whiff because he was committed elsewhere. We put the effort in to try to flip him, so it was unsuccessful. So call it what you want, whether it's a whiff or not. But, I mean, only 12 guys in this class, and then the coaches are talking about they have 12 spots left, 8 on offense and 4 on defense. is what they're no, it was 3 defensive linemen. It was the other way. It was 4 on offense and 8 on defense is what they're looking to add to this class going forward. That's doubling. That's another recruiting class. That's like when I taught high school and I would say, my kids would or students would say, why do you, or how do you do this? And because I've been doing it for another lifetime on top of what you've lived. If I'm, double their age, you need double the amount of kids you have signed. And 80% of recruits are signing now. Where are these All-American 4-star kids coming from? Where are the guys down here that you're going to all of a sudden pull when they're not there? I'll tell you another story. Caleb Boateng, and I mentioned him the last time we were talking about offensive linemen. He goes to Fort Lauderdale High School that's not too far away from my house, begging for a Miami Hurricanes offer. He says, I want to be at Miami. I'm from here. It's a top They have a Cambridge program at Fort Lauderdale High School, so they do very good academics. So he's like, look, the academic component will fit. Like that, I want to be at Miami. And Miami did not offer him. And his other offers were like Minnesota, FAU, and like whoever else. He pops up and signs with Clemson today. Clemson. 4-time defending ACC champion. 4-time consecutive college football playoff. Clemson. So Clemson, he's good enough for Clemson, even if he's a project. Even people, he's just going for the program. He's going to wear a jersey, never play. Even if that's true, he's good enough as a project prospect for Clemson to come down to Fort Lauderdale High School and offer him and get him to sign. But the Miami Hurricanes, who are 22 miles down the road, and he's begging. I'll pull up the tweets. I'll retweet them today. Begging openly for an offer. Camped at Miami a couple times. And we said, no, we're too good. We're not going to do that. We're not going to go that way. We're not going to lower our standards to offer you. But he's good enough to go to Clemson. So where are these guys? Where are these 12 additional players of quality in this class coming from? This is not the NCAA video game. Rest in peace, because I missed that game so much. But you're not going in and creating a player. And this is, I know people out there watching did this. You take a player and you create a player as you need a tight end. You want a wide receiver, quarterback, whatever. You give him all the attributes for that. But when you're assigning his position, you put him at punter. So he's a 1-star punter, but you go recruit the hell out of him. And then all of a sudden you put him in, you switch his position on the roster. Oh, I got a 99 rated quarterback who's a true freshman. Oh, we're going to win. This is not that. You're not generating anybody out of thin air. So I'm confused where these misses today don't matter, apparently, and who we've gone after is okay, but we need double the amount of guys we already have signed of Miami caliber quality to continue to have a roster that's more talented than everybody, to maybe have us compete against elite teams, or hell, even against decent teams, because that's been a challenge recently. And I'm supposed to expect that that's actually going to happen. I don't see where those players are from. I don't see how that happens. I'm questioning that process. And it just becomes more and more glaring with every single miss. And every year for the last 3 years, Mark Richt has come on this day of signing, whichever day it was, in February or in December. And he's talking about, hey, we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep working. We're going to find other guys. There was one post-signing day signing in 2017. There was one in 2018. So you found one dude. Yeah, you keep looking. You found one dude and you got a couple transfers. I don't see it. Prove me wrong. Somebody who wants to go back and look it up. Look, tell me I was wrong and all these dudes came late or came after. I don't think that that's happened. And I defy anybody to tell me that. So to sit here and say, oh, yeah, we're just going to get not even 2, not even 3, 12 dudes of Miami quality out of thin air when 80 or 85% of prospects have already signed, I don't believe it. And I'm very skeptical that anything near that's going to happen.
I really hate to cut this conversation short, but I'm late for my next guest because we have a mounting list of people online. But I do have one question, so I'm going to push him off a little bit, and then I've got the accordion effect working against me. Right, but I have to ask this question because I think the stock market analogy I threw in at the beginning of the conversation takes hold today when kids see, oh, he's not signing. This is just not a good situation, so I'm not going to sign. But moving back, the negative impact of Manny Diaz leaving, a 7-5 season, which of course isn't good, but still you've got your rival at 5-7 pulling in a top 15 class. So that can be overcome. And then on top of that, the mishandling of the quarterback situation. Do you think those are all the factors that contributed to what started off as a bad day and got worse?
I think that those are all factors. And I think that there are even more. I think it goes back further than that. I think, just because I'm a musician, it's not the error at measure 37. It was the breath that you took wrong back at 25. There were things that you did not set yourself up for success. And then eventually at that time, or at a time in the future, things fell apart. So I question the recruiting strategy. I question some of the interactions and engagements. And Andrew Ivins from 247 Sports, he wrote it accurately. Miami's not won a recruiting battle since September for anybody. September. I mean, yeah, like we flipped an Appalachian State kid. Cool. But like, where is any contested recruitment? I mean, Jarvis Brownlee was in this class, gone, and that was just because he wanted to leave. Like there's so many things. So like, did the quarterback mishandling affect it? Yes. Did Manny Diaz leaving affect things? I mean, more for the future, because that's more of the 2020 guys that decommitted, especially on the defensive side of the ball, 2020 and beyond. But I don't think that necessarily affected this current class, because most of the signees are on defense and a lot of them are good. Jafari Harvey, Keontre Smith, Corey Couch. There's a lot of good guys there. 5-7, obviously, but I think, 7-5, but I think that, there's chinks in the armor, and I think it's the way that the 7-5 went about. I think it's the way that the coaches, build relationships or try to do things. And Mark Richt talked about, like the silent commitment thing, where, we're, not going to take a commitment from another guy because this guy told us he was coming and blah, blah, blah. Like I don't think that there is a school in the country that gets pimped more than Miami. By that, I want to say, a kid will communicate with Miami, will commit to Miami, will engage Miami all the way along in whatever form or fashion, with the specific intent to then leverage the Miami interest for the interest offer slot, whatever, for the school where they actually want to be. There's no school in America that has that happen to them more than Miami. And I think that's a culture thing. I think that comes from the top down, and that's really what needs to change. So, I mean, there are many different things that, lead into this issue. But yeah, I mean, the things that you mentioned, are those problems at the forefront? Yes. But I mean, there's a long laundry list of things that are wrong right now. And we're seeing them all kind of come together in a perfect storm of terrible for Miami.
Well, I would love to have you back to talk the bowl game and the mounting comments and questions that come in. I see them on almost a daily basis and think, maybe have Cam on and just open up the mailbag and do a viewer comment response segment.
Email me. Like I said, I don't have a car, so I'm not going to work for the next 2 days. And then, so I have plenty of time. So the next couple of days, if you want to get on, or some other time in the near future, probably tomorrow, Friday, that would be better. But yeah, just email me. We'll work it out and come back and do this some more. And then just screenshot some of those questions, because even if it's just a question and answer hour, I'll try to knock a bunch of them out. But either way, I'll be back.
Thanks, Cam. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys. Have fun.